Welcome back. This is Family Time 209. We're looking at responsible decision making. We're talking about being safe. This may not seem like the most exciting topic, but it's important. And as a father, and as a teacher and a coach, this is something I think about all the time. I always think that my first responsibility to my kids, to my wife, to all of my students, athletes, all of you, is to keep those people safe, to keep all of you safe. I always think that's my first responsibility. One, to keep you safe from physical harm, but also to create a safe environment where you feel like you can be yourself and you're not going to be treated poorly by anyone, bullied by anyone, that sort of thing. That I always think is my primary responsibility. It's also a tough thing as a parent and as a teacher. Like as a parent, there's sometimes I kind of just wish I could like shelter my kids from everything, just really like not let them out into the broad world. But that's not fair to them. And it really kind of cripples them for life. I want them to be strong. I do want my kids, I do want all of you to have some failures and have some struggles. That's the only way that you build resiliency. It's the only way you get stronger. It's the only way you learn anything. But it's tough. It's hard to find that line. That's even like with athletes. Clev and I talk about all the time. It's like the worst thing when like an athlete gets injured. It like eats at us because we know how much time you put in and how much effort you put in. And then when you get injured, it's like, oh man, like it's heartbreaking. Because we know how hard it is for you. So it's that idea of like being safe. So I kind of have settled on that the best way for me to help keep people safe, the people I care about, including all of you, is try to help you be strong. Now, in like an athletic sense, that is part of it is actual physical strength to help prevent injuries, to help you be safe. That's one of the reasons the strength and conditioning stuff is so important to me. But also, the way that we do things and the way I try to do things with my own children is to build discipline, mental resiliency, to be strong mentally and emotionally. It's part of the reason we do this stuff. We talk about social emotional things because there's going to be a lot of difficult things in your life. There's going to be times where you don't feel safe or where you are challenged. And I want you to develop the strength to handle those things. Strong people are harder to kill. And I say that sometimes. I mean it in part, literally, but I mean more about all the challenges you're going to face in life. So I want you thinking this week about some of I'm going to use the term dangerous or unhealthy situations because that's part of being safe is how do we avoid those potentially dangerous situations? That's a little different than facing obstacles. There's always going to be challenges, but how do you try to stay safe? It's a big thing. I'm always coaching up my own kids of how to stay physically safe in different situations, be aware of their surroundings. I'm a big proponent of everyone doing like self-defense, like actual training. I think that's important. But how do you try to keep yourself safe in different situations? And I know you face situations where you have to make those decisions. I think of through my whole life. I think an early one, I was in elementary school, and I've talked about, I grew up on the north end of Mason City. My parents were really involved, and they were good and really protective of us and took care of us. But that wasn't always the case with a lot of my buddies. So I could be running around with other friends. And at a pretty young age, I was kind of running around, all over town doing stuff. Because I'd go to a friend's house, and if we weren't supervised, he'd kind of go do whatever. And I remember one buddy that I had, we'd pretty regularly get into some trouble when I was hanging out with him. His name was Kyle. And one day me and Kyle, I don't even know where we were at in Mason City. We wound up down by the river, and must have been like real early spring or something like that. I mean, late in winter where the ice had been frozen, but things were starting to melt. And we were down playing on the river with like open spots on it. Not a very good idea to begin with. But I really remember like kind of being on the bank. He's like, hey, we should go down and play on the ice. I'm not putting this on him. I'm talking about my role in this. Where I remember having that little flash in my head of like, man, it's probably not a good idea. Like, I don't think we should do this. Like, clearly it wasn't super safe, but there's that peer pressure a little bit. He's like, come on, like it'll be fine. So I'm like, he started going down there, and then they have that little thing of like, I don't want to be the one standing up on the shore or act like I'm afraid, whatever. So I go down, get on the ice. Well, then that ego's going a little bit, and then I don't remember if he challenged me or if I suggested it, but then it was the challenge of to see there was like a floating piece of ice, like the water had kind of started breaking up all around it, like to see if I could jump on that piece and then jump off and like make it back to the more solid part that we were standing on. So I go to jump on this piece of ice, and sure enough, it tips, and I start sliding into the river. Luckily, I was able to catch myself and pull myself up on to the more solid part. I was very close. I mean, I could have easily slid underneath the ice, and that probably would have been it. And just then I'm soaked, I'm freezing cold, and Kyle and I understood that we would probably get in trouble if somebody found us out. I was in elementary school at the time, and so we tried to hide out. We made it back to his house, tried to hide out in his basement, and we were elementary kids who weren't thinking very well, so we didn't even bother to try to change me to dry clothes or anything like that. So I was just like trying to like hide out and shivering or whatever. But I can think of situations like that starting from a young age where it's like there's that little voice in my head that says, that's not very safe, that's not a good idea. And then whether it's peer pressure, or trying to feel like I need to fit in, or not wanting to seem like I'm not tough, something like that, making a bad decision. And that goes through your whole life. I know you've all experienced things like that, but it happens as you get older, the age you're at now, where it's like, should I go to this social gathering where maybe some people are making some choices that aren't in line with what I want to do, or could compromise the things that I want to accomplish because maybe they don't have some things to lose that I have to lose. Or it's, hey, should I get in the car with that person who's maybe driving recklessly or maybe is impaired? Or even things we do online, I want to talk about that, where it's, should I be connecting with people in this way? Should I be communicating with these people that I really don't know? What information should I put out about myself? What should I share of myself? Images, things like that. Those are all things that we have to consider. And I do think it is harder for your generation in that way, where there's a much larger digital cyber world that you're also interacting with. So I want you to think about what are some clues that you have to let you know if something is maybe unsafe, dangerous, or unhealthy. I want you to think of how you can try to avoid those situations, how you can try to manage them when maybe you can't totally avoid them. And I want you to also think about like what's a safe space for you? Like what's a place where you feel this is where I feel like most safe to be myself and to feel like I'm being nurtured as who I am. That's an important thing. Like we all need that safe space, whether that's a person or a physical place, whatever, that safe space to be ourselves. So that's what we're talking about this week. Think about the choices that we make. Till next time, much love.